Hey YouTube, it's Geoffrey here in Norway. Okay, a little housekeeping. I was able to connect with that Belgian offshore wind company Parkwind, and yes, it was just a scheduling difficulty, so hopefully I will be able to connect with the managers next week, but those guys are very busy. In other exciting news, I will be headed to Glasgow, Scotland on September 10th for an interview with Zero Energy. They are specifically a renewable energy company, but not specifically in wind, so slightly tangential role for where I've been focused recently. However, they thought that my background was strong enough to make an impact and jump on board and get up to speed quickly. It's actually a graduate program that I'm interviewing for, which seems to be much more popular here in Europe than it is in the US, where I basically spent a couple years bouncing around in this company doing different divisions and figuring out where I fit best, which would be kind of ideal because that's what I'm trying to do, is figure out where I fit into this whole thing. So I've got another week or so to continue pontificating on such things as where do I fit and why am I even trying to fit into this space, the renewable space, that is. Why not just pursue some other lucrative career? I'm sure I could do quite well in aerospace or in, hell, oil and gas. It sounds like they're still doing pretty well, even though things are changing. It depends on your definition of how quickly they're changing, but things are changing. But there are lots of other places that I could go and make money, or I could just make money online and travel for the rest of my life. But I'm kind of hung up on this renewable energy thing, so why? Why renewables? Well, for starters, I'm pretty well convinced that climate change is the biggest threat that our species have faced in probably several thousand years, so maybe the Black Plague, but beyond that, there isn't much. It's on the level of Black Plague, and if we can do something about it, then we probably should. So how am I so convinced about climate change? There's a lot of people out there saying that climate change is a hoax. The most powerful man in the world thinks that climate change is a hoax perpetuated by China. Well, is he wrong? Yes, he is wrong. However, my comparison yesterday wasn't exactly fair because I used the desire not to know that our cell phones are giving us cancer as an explanation for why more of us don't think that they're giving us cancer. However, most of us are fairly convinced by the science of climate change. At least a lot of those in the elite parts of the world are convinced about the science of climate change, yet we shouldn't want to know that. So maybe is the oppression going the other way? Perhaps the giant consensus on human-caused climate change is actually just a bunch of corrupt people pushing an idea and actually suppressing good skeptical data. Well, I'm here to tell you unequivocally that no, that's not happening. Now, I'm not a climate scientist. I've not formally studied the climate. So how can I be so sure? I'm actually not sure about a lot of things, but this is one of them. And I don't have to know a lot of the science to be convinced. Really, it just comes down to who can I trust? If we just play the game of let's assume that climate change actually is a hoax, well, who is it perpetuated by? Maybe the climate scientists? I mean, they're the ones who seem to be really in on this. They seem to be going just whole hog because, all of them are on board. What have they gained? A few more research dollars? A little bit more of a fight for those research dollars? Now, I'm not a scientist, but I know that it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. Some people make a fairly decent living, but you don't go into science chasing money. So something tells me that those people are not the ones who are particularly venal and corrupt and just chasing dollars. But let's assume that there is an actor out there, maybe some of the big renewable energy companies, maybe it is China. Maybe they're the ones who have something to gain from this. Then you have to ask yourself the question, are they that powerful? Are they powerful enough to convince basically every leader of every nation on Earth that this is a problem and we should do something about it? I'll just let you ponder that one. Well, we move on to the other side. Let's assume that climate change is a real thing, that the scientists are doing good, honest science, and they're reporting it more or less fairly. Who would have something to lose? Maybe some large industries who tend to dump lots of money into funding other research and trying to influence policy? I don't know, like ExxonMobil or Koch Industries or BP or Royal Dutch Shell or, I guess the list goes on. And then you have to ask yourself the question, are these companies that powerful to convince large numbers of people that climate change is a hoax? Well, they convinced the President of the United States, and they even convinced him to name the CEO of ExxonMobil his Secretary of State. So yeah, they are that powerful. So which side do I come down on? I'll trust the scientists. Are they that venal? No. Are they that corrupt? No. Does the oil industry have a history of corruption and chasing dollars at the expense of people? Yes. You don't have to know anything about the science. You really don't have to look into it. Just know who to trust. That's how I'm convinced. And I have looked at the science, and I'm still convinced by that. So, if you want to doubt climate change, go for it. But there's really not a lot to lose by trying to solve the problem. And if we don't succeed, hey, at least we tried. But that answers the question of why I'm so hung up on this renewable energy thing, because at this point, doing anything else would just feel wrong. Talk to you guys tomorrow.